Hey everyone, today I'm sketching in one of the smaller piece sketchbooks. It's about A6 size. It feels kinda perfect for a quick little study without feeling too intimidating. I'm also trying out this new metal palette box I put together recently. It has all these little mixing wells which I love and makes it super easy to keep my colors clean and mix as I go. I've got all my blues and greens grouped over here and 3 pans of ultramarine light that I use for mixing with pretty much everything, blues, greens, even browns. Then over here I've got yellow, white and burnt umber that I only use with greens. This pan of ultramarine light I keep for just mixing with browns and black, and I even gave them their own white pan, which helps keep those mixes from getting too murky. I also have a second white pen over here that's just for mixing with warmer colors, and right next to it I've got a pre-mixed skin tone and a little pen of white just for adjusting that mix. Oh, and I added some Naples yellow and yellow ochre at the top. I don't use them much, but they've been coming in handy lately. I'm honestly pretty happy with how I set it all up. If you've seen my older palettes that I set up a couple years ago, yeah, those were kind of a mess. I finally took time to reorganize my gouache paints in a way that actually makes sense for how I work now. Back then I didn't really know how I wanted to use all these paints, but now that I've been painting with gouache more regularly, it feels nice to have a system that actually works. I'll probably end up changing it again at some point, but for now it's working well. Okay, so for today's sketch I had this super cute horizontal photo of a squirrel sitting in a bush with blue flowers, but I didn't want to use the very first spread in this sketchbook because of the stitches in the middle, so I just flipped past that and started on the next page instead. Like usual, I began with a rough sketch using my Payne's Grey pencil, just a few loose lines to block in where the background and foreground might go. Then I sketched in the squirrel nestled in the bush. I don't think I've made any animal videos since the 7-day drawing challenge back in December. I got so caught up in landscapes and portraits that I completely left out all the adorable creatures nature has to offer. And maybe, just maybe, after that long break, I should have made my comeback with a squirrel. I probably could have picked someone a little easier to paint, because even while I was sketching, I was already starting to stress about how on earth I was going to handle its fluffy tail. It just felt like a lot. But if you've seen any of my other process videos, you probably know by now that I'm not trying to make some perfect step-by-step tutorial for you to follow. I hope you won't be disappointed if you came here expecting that. What I do try to share is my real experience. I'm still learning to draw, still learning to paint, and maybe most importantly, still learning how to deal with all those inner voices that tell you not to even try. You know, the ones that say things like, "This looks bad, why are you even doing this?" or "You are not a real artist." I've had to learn how to sit with those thoughts, to hear them without letting them win. And yeah, I still make way more mistakes than polished pieces, but one thing I've started doing, probably since last summer, is skipping the self-hate and self-pitying part. Instead of spiraling into "I'm the worst, I should stop drawing," I've been trying to look at my work like it's a puzzle. Okay, I don't love how this turned out. Why? What exactly is off? What could I do differently next time? What skills am I still missing and how can I practice those? That's actually how I came up with the idea of making lists of the things I want to work on and turning them into 7-day drawing challenges. So even though my art journey feels like it's moving at a snail's pace sometimes, it is moving, and that's what matters. So why am I telling you all this? I guess because people often say you should get out of your comfort zone to grow. And yeah, that's true. But what they don't always tell you is that stepping outside your comfort zone can feel awful, like truly awful. Sometimes you try something brave and the result is not great. And that can make you want to crawl right back into the comfort zone and never leave again. I've been there, but I'm trying to keep reminding myself, and maybe you too, that growth often looks messy before it looks beautiful. Anyway, back to the sketch. When it was time to paint, I started with a kind of bluish-gray wash for the background. I was aiming to suggest sky, trees, maybe even a few distant houses. It's one of those areas in the reference photo where it's all blurry and vague and you're not really sure what's going on. There was this strip in the middle that looked like it could be a road or maybe water. I painted it like a road at first, kind of a dull gray, but later on I changed my mind and glazed some blue over it to make it look like water instead. It just felt a bit more magical that way. Painting the background was honestly the most relaxing part. Everything's soft and out of focus, so there's no pressure to get it exactly right. You can't really make mistakes when the whole idea is to suggest atmosphere with a few brush strokes. But then I had to move on to the foreground, and that's where things got a little intimidating. The bush with its million tiny leaves was right up close, and I'm honestly not used to painting close-up views of nature like that. I usually paint trees or bushes in the distance, just a few dabs of paint to suggest leaves or texture. But this was totally different. The leaves were right there in your face with details and depth and overlap. And because I hadn't done a test sketch or anything beforehand, I was figuring it all out as I went. It definitely felt like a challenge. Once the background was done, I moved on to the bush. I started by blocking in the farthest leaves, the ones that are kind of soft and blurry in the reference, with that muted brownish green color. I wasn't going for precision here, just laying down a base to separate the deeper background from the middle part of the bush. Then I roughly mapped out where the darkest and lightest greens would go, not actual leaves yet, more like blobs of color to help guide the layering later. This stage was supposed to be simple, just shapes, just suggestion, but unfortunately instead of following the golden rule of less is more, I kind of went with more is more. I just kept going, more shapes, more leaves, more details, and honestly I think I started spiraling a bit. Looking back, I really wish I'd taken a break right there. Like, if I had just paused, stepped away, made a cup of tea, and come back with fresh eyes, I might have remembered what my original intention was. I wanted the bush to feel soft and loose, not overworked. I love using water gouache, more like watercolor, but in that anxious perfectionist moment, I forgot that completely. I got caught up in trying to recreate every leaf, every little bit of contrast from the photo, which I didn't even manage to do. But what I did manage was to overwork the sketch. I think what happened is that the leaves stressed me out so much that they ended up stealing all of my attention. I got tunnel vision. And probably deep down I knew, if I stepped away from painting mid-filming to take a break, I might not come back for a while. That break could have turned into a few hours or a few days. So instead I just pushed through. But now that I look back at the process, I kind of forgot that the squirrel was supposed to be the star of the show. That's where the detail should have gone. Even though the bush is right up front in the composition, it didn't need to be hyper detailed. Just a suggestion, a few well placed leaves, some color variation, a little texture here and there. That would have been more than enough. For painting the leaves, I used a filbert brush. The rounded edge really helps create those natural leaf shapes, and I do like the effect. It's soft, it gives you that nice organic feel without too much fuss, but to be honest, I kind of wish I'd done fewer organic shapes here and there, because they turned into everywhere. I just couldn't stop myself. Somewhere in the middle of all that, I also blocked in the basic shape of the squirrel. I used a light beige tone, just a thin wash, so I could start building her up later. That helped break up the composition and gave me something else to focus on for a minute. Once the squirrel's base layer was in, I went right back to work on the foliage, figuring by the time I was done with the bush, the paint on the squirrel would be dry enough to start adding detail. So yeah, that was the game plan, a very figure it out as I go kind of plan, which honestly is how most of my sketches go, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but either way I'm learning a lot from these choices, even the ones I'd rather not repeat. So, if you're still here with me after all that, thank you. Now it was finally time to paint the squirrel, and I wish I could tell you that this was the part where everything magically clicked into place and the sketch came together beautifully. But, spoiler alert, not exactly. Oh my, this one really turned into a sketch to remember. Actually, to be fair, it didn't start off badly at all. I began by slowly layering in different tones of grey and beige to build up the shadows and texture of her fur. It was going pretty well, and I kind of wish I had stopped halfway through, just kept it loose and light with a few blocked in shades and then added some details with colored pencil. That might have looked better in the end. But no, I kept going, and that's where things started slipping a bit. One of my brave decisions this time was using a sepia-colored pencil for the outlines instead of my usual Payne's grey. I thought it might bring a softer, warmer feel to the piece, and I've been meaning to experiment more with different colors for outlines. So, in a way, it was a win because I actually tried something new. But also, yeah, not all experiments turn out cute, and maybe next time I'll leave the experimenting for sketches that aren't being filmed or shared on Patreon. Looking back, I think if the foreground bush had been less detailed, like I mentioned earlier, and I'd stuck with the Payne's grey pencil, the whole sketch would felt more balanced and more like my usual work. But still, I'm really glad I worked from this photo. I learned so much from it, and sometimes that's even better than ending up with a perfect sketch. Also, one thing I did love, the little blue flowers. The mix of blue and purplish blue I used actually turned out really sweet, and outlining them at the end gave them just the right pop. So among all the stress and second guessing, I got that one little win, and I'll take it. Thanks again for sticking around. I hope the rest of the video is relaxing or inspiring in some way, and if you decide to give this reference a try too, let me know. I'd love to see your version. It's always so fun to see how differently we all interpret the same scene. Bye!